Welcome back to the Montana Garage on another fine December day. Too bad it's May 23rd. Most of it's gone now, but we woke up to about 5 inches of wet, slushy snow this morning. It snowed all day, turned to rain here this afternoon, and it's gonna be rainy, cold, wet, and gloomy for the next few days. So I didn't get a chance to test drive the Baremetal 55 with the new ATM carburetor I recently installed, but I can't wait around for the weather any longer. I got stuff to do. We have 23 days left until Big Sky Race Week, and I have to finish my list. Next thing on the list, Gear Vendor Overdrive installation, baby. And that's right, you guessed it. I ain't never done that before, so follow along and we'll see if we can figure it out. For those of you that don't know, the Gear Vendor Overdrive is kind of an extension to your existing transmission. So I have a Borg-Warner T10 4-speed, and this basically is going to just replace the tail shaft, and it gives me an overdrive gear. So we got that must be like the overdrive unit itself, and then there's a couple different extensions which I think are different to, you know, you can put this on almost any transmission, so you get different pieces and parts to make it work with what you got. So this is what I have. They sent a pretty thorough instruction booklet and, you know, like installation and what's it called? Operators and installation manual. So they're pretty good instructions. There's some wiring, of course, and it sounds like there's a little more to it than I expected, but hopefully we can figure it out. So obviously the first thing we got to do is get the transmission out of the car. I've done that several times. If you've watched many of the videos, you've seen me do it a couple times. So we won't bore you with all that, but I have to go through it even if you guys don't have to. So I'll get the car up on the ramps, and the only thing different I have now is I have exhaust in the way. So maybe that's gonna, I mean, it's not really in the way, but it might present some challenges that weren't there. Maybe not at all. But let me get the transmission out of the car, and then the struggle will begin at that point, because I have to figure out how to follow these instructions and get the tail shaft removed. And you got to press pins out, and there's balls and springs and checkpoint. I don't know. We'll figure it out together, hopefully. Well, we finally got that part of it whooped. So last time I took this thing out, if you watched the video, I'll put a link up here. I just kind of, you know, bench pressed it out of there, and it worked okay. And this time I thought, well, you know, I had the old shoulder surgery, and it's still far from 100%. I thought, well, I'll get smart and use the jack. So I started by trying to take the shifter off. And my shifter, as far as I can tell, the shifter handle itself doesn't come off. Even though there's a bolt right here, I've taken that out of there and it doesn't come off. So I started messing with the linkage, and I couldn't get to one of the little clips, and I was like, I'll just take it off. I'll just take it out with the shifter on there. Well, I got to be a little bit of a struggle with the jack trying to lower it, because I couldn't get the shifter out of the hole. I mean, eventually I did, but yeah, I should have took the shifter off. So now we gotta consult the instructions. Well, now I guess I'm gonna take the shifter off, and then we'll consult some instructions and figure out what we got to do. Something about the reverse lever, and then we got to get this tail shaft off of here. All right, I got the shifter and the, what else did I do there? Something else. Oh, the transmission mount. We got those taken off there, so it's all stripped down. Next thing we got to do is consult the instructions, because it talks about, I think we got to knock, this is reserved, there's this little pin, we got to knock that out and take this off and try to figure out how to take the tail shaft off. All right, new night, same project. I went in last night, had some dinner or something, and yeah, never made it back up, but it was late. So I looked at the instructions. Looks like we got to take this guy off. So we got to loosen this nut. So our goal is to get this tail shaft housing off, because with the Gear Vendor, we do not use this housing. I've done a little bit of Googling, and I can't find much about rebuilding or tearing apart the Borg-Warner T10. There's a lot of stuff about the Super T10, and I just kind of skipped that because it's not a Super T10, but I don't know if maybe it's the same on the outside and the inside's just different. I really don't know. The thing I did see with the T10, the guy was just tearing one apart. Kind of an old broken down transmission. There was no fluid or nothing in it. So I don't know. Obviously there's fluid in this thing because it keeps dripping out the tail shaft here. Do I need to drain this before I start taking it apart, or am I gonna make a huge mess? I don't know. Guess we'll find out. And on the gear vendor instructions, it doesn't say anything about the speedometer gear, but that guy said to take that out of there because it'll make it come apart easier. So we'll see if I can figure that out. I can't even get this dang washer off of here. All right, now there's a little pin under here, and I don't know if I have anything. It says drive it upwards. I don't know if this is gonna fit in the hole. Need something smaller. Smallest one I can find. And this one's got a point on it, so we'll go a tad maybe. If I had a work toolbox, I got some little, what do they call it? Pin remover thing? I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, I gotta look for tools. We'll be back. All right, we're gonna go with not the right tool for the job, but it fits in the little hole. We got a little Phillips. So take that pin out of there. Let's see, I'm gonna put him in there with some other stuff that doesn't belong with this. And then, like I said, the other guy said to take this guy out here, so we'll do that. Got a little retainer type situation here. Then it's just supposed to pry up and out of there. In a perfect world. In theory. Looking for tools again. That dude just pried it up. Pried with a little persuasion. Came a little bit. Speedometer gear. All right, and I mean, there's a little bit of fluid in there. It's not like full of fluid. You can see I'm leaking it out here on the table again. But I guess we'll just pop her apart and see what happens. So now we gotta take, what do we got? A couple 3/4 and a couple 5/8 maybe? 5/8. Needs more leverage. Just this one doesn't want to cooperate. So it says to note where these come from, so see if they're different lengths or something. That one goes there, one goes there, same as that one. So maybe we're just noting the 3/4 versus the 5/8. One goes there, same. All three of those are the same. Nothing to really worry about. Oh, we're making a mess with some grease now. Let's get this last one off here and get it in the pan. Come on. I don't even know what's in here. I guess we're just gonna make a mess and wipe it up, huh? Dang it. Tap extension housing with soft-faced hammer to loosen transmission remove. Note, when removing housing, reach in and push shift fork away from reverse gear collar. I think that other guy like pulled up on this thing or something. Oil everywhere. Is it dripping underneath? Oh boy. It's dripping underneath. Luckily there was a pan right here, but it's all full of my brushes. Dang it. Oh man. This is not going to plan. I thought we were losing a little bit of fluid. We were losing a lot, but luckily we caught it. But now I got grease on all my cleaning brushes, gear oil. And this pan actually has a hole in it, so eventually it's gonna come through there too, but it's a little tiny hole. All right, let me do something about this situation. So apparently the answer to my earlier question is yes, you should drain the gear oil out of this before you do this. I'm making a hell of a mess now. I got it tapped off a little bit, but I got it sitting in this pan so I don't get more gear oil everywhere. Okay, here comes. All right, now I don't want to go any further. Something about a further maybe. Something just fell out. what fell where. Okay, here's the thing that fell. Perfect, because I don't know where it goes or if I need it or what it is even. What I do know is I got gear oil all over everything. Hey, but we got the old tail shaft removed, one way or the other. We don't use this guy, but we got to get this little ball out of here, I think. A little bit of fluid in there. All right, so we destroyed this gasket, which is fine, I think, because they give us new gaskets. So we are at the point where we need to once again consult some instructions. So you go grab a snack. Well, one thing about these instructions, they're pretty thorough, but there's no pictures. And it does say at the top, warning, this one sheet instruction page is for experienced gear vendor installers only. That's not me. Hopefully we're gonna figure it out. So it says to remove the shift fork and shaft assembly shaft from tail housing. So I don't know what none of that stuff is, so I Googled it. This is the shift fork for the reverse thing, I think. And this is what fell out, but I think it goes right there. And then this is the shaft assembly shaft, and I started to pound on it. There's a little ball and a spring that hold it in place. I should have showed you that, but I didn't. But it goes, I'm guessing, out like this to a certain point. Now we got to try to get it to go a little further. So that went in, and then there's a little ball right here, and that was in that little hole with a spring, and that was what was holding that shaft assembly in place. So we need to, I think we need to reuse this stuff. That's why we're taking it out. So we got a little spring and a little, I think it's called a detent ball. All right, looks like we also need this shaft. There's a little pin or something right here, I think, that we got to push into the shaft, or something like that. Looks like it's going in. Can't tell how far it's got to go in. Far enough to get out of the way. How far is that? You know, a lot happening as far as... Oh. I guess there is a lot happening as far as being able to move it. All right, and there's my little pin. Got lucky and didn't lose that. Now I think we're maybe done with that guy. And now we need new parts. This is the first adapter. I don't know if that's the technical term for it, but we'll look that up in a second. So this bad boy goes, there's a spot for that right in there. I can get the hole lined up. Nice to turn just a smidgel frigil. Lube her up a little more. All right, now we got to put plug back in there. Did I lose any of it? There was some orange before. I don't know if there was more to this. All right, I gotta get a light shine down in there and see if we can get this, they call it a Welch plug, installed. So here's the thing, this is like the little cap. This was the thing I was punching on. It didn't actually go out of the tail housing, so we need that. And this in concert, or whatever you say. Hopefully hold that shaft in there. Okay, not totally sure where I left off, but I got that little pin in there with the little, I don't think mine, there's this thing called the Welch plug, and doing some research, mine had a little plug, but the Welch plug looks a little different, and it goes with the crown up, and then you crush it to make a seal. Mine had like a little other part that I think you just use to push the roll pin in. Anyways, in the Gear Vendor, it says to either use a Welch plug or just a dollop of silicone. So I put the plug, whatever it was, in there to drive the shaft in, and then I just filled the hole with silicone or RTV. Hopefully that's going to keep it from leaking. So the next thing we're going to do is put this shift shaft assembly. It's the reverse shift thing that came out of the tail housing, and it goes in this bad boy right here. But I don't know, this O-ring looks terrible, and I think this one was leaking a little bit too. And these, I guess you just take the side cover off and you can replace them pretty easily, you know, even in the vehicle or without taking the whole transmission apart. This one, you got to take this tail shaft off to get that out of there. So I'm going to see if I can find me a new O-ring in the morning at Napa or somewhere. I don't know that they'll have the exact part, but should be able to just get an O-ring that fits on there, right? Maybe, hopefully. Anyways, yeah, it's almost midnight anyways. But I think all I got to do is put this in there with the little spring and the ball, And then there's this little thrust bearing or Torrington washer, Torrington bearing thing that goes on here. I already got that on there. And then I'm ready to put this, well, I got to put a new gasket. And then this first adapter is ready to go back on. So we're making progress. And actually it hasn't been that bad. I just got to do a little bit of Googling to find out what each part is to make sure I know what I'm doing. But let's get a new seal tomorrow, or a new O-ring tomorrow, and then we'll move forward. See you then. Next day, I'm back with my 35-cent O-ring. It's not like, you know, a part for a T10 transmission. It's just a hardware store O-ring, but it looks like pretty much money to me. So we're gonna go with that. It's gotta be better than this one that's got the edge that's all chewed up. So, and apparently there was still more gear oil slowly leaking out of the transmission because I got another puddle of oil on the table to get cleaned up. First thing we can do is just put this O-ring back on here. Check it out, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna say it's good enough. What do you think? Is it good enough, or am I gonna be wishing I would have ordered one from some transmission rebuild place? Good enough, that's what I'm gonna say. All right, let me get this cleaned up and we'll figure out how to put this back together. All right, now we're gonna try to get this shifter shaft installed. So I put the spring, I don't know what you guys can see, I put the spring in the little hole already. You put the shaft in the hole until it touches, it says, and then you got to get the little ball guy, which I threw up here. So now you put the ball in the hole, to press it in the spring, and somehow get this. Somehow, I'm guessing I need to have that turned differently, right? Strike one, get the ball back out of there. I think I had that oriented the wrong way, but it doesn't really want to go in there the other way. Okay, so you got to put that in there facing the right way. Now you get the ball in there. I don't know, maybe. Now I can't get the ball. All right, let me read the instructions again. Place the spring in the hole of new housing. Install shifter shaft from inside until detent plate is butted against inside of house. Place ball on spring, hold it down, then push shifter shaft away from side of housing until directly over ball, and turn until ball drops into shaft, onto shaft detent. So I think like right there is how it ends up. When I hold it against the housing, there's just not quite enough room to push the ball in there like it says to do. All right, back to the drawing. So close. So I can't do it the way they say to do it. It doesn't work. So I got the shaft out and I'm trying to press the ball in and then push the shaft over, and I can almost get it, or whatever that's worth. Not worth anything, I guess, if you can't actually get it. I need some help. I think I need another set of hands to push the thing while I hold the ball down and get the ball started down. Almost like I have to use this screwdriver to push it down. Then because the screwdriver's in there, I don't have room to push the ball over. So I need a skinnier, smaller screwdriver or smaller something to push on the ball. Skinnier, maybe? Spring's in the hole, ball's on the spring hole area. In my finger and the screwdriver, I can push on it slightly. Then I can't get the shaft to move over still because that's in the way. I can't push on it if I don't have something in there. Try this position, maybe. Defeated by a ball and a spring in a hole. Never drive the car again because of a ball. Probably gonna lose it if I mess around too much. Somebody out there knows how to do this. Like say, you're supposed to be able to push the thing all the way to the edge, but then it doesn't go over far enough and I can't push on the ball. I don't know if my shift thing is thicker than they thought, or I'm not reading the instructions right. Unbelievable. Tried it in the other position and I just can't. Now it doesn't trap the ball back there and the ball just wants to float away. This is how it says to do it. Push this in until that's against the side of the case, which it is, but then it just doesn't quite expose enough of the hole, and there's not enough room. I mean, the ball just doesn't go in the hole far enough, and you can't push it down at all. Well, you guys didn't get to experience it because it took too long, but I finally got the dang ball in the dang hole. Pressing in there and screwdrivers, I got it partway started, then I got this little guy in there and was able to send it home. Holy cow. That was, so far that's the hardest thing in this whole deal. Hopefully it's right. Yeah, so then when you shift, yeah. All right, I'm leaving that alone until I screw it up. All right, I guess we're ready to try to put this thing together. It says to put a thin layer of, it says ultra thin, actually. Layer of silicone. So we got to put this gasket on and then figure out how to weasel it back on there and get all the shafts lined up. There's some stuff in the instructions, so we'll try to figure it out. All right, I'll put a thin layer on this side too, I guess. So I had to put this Torrington bearing or thrust bearing, whatever it's called, on this shaft. We got that, and I'll tell you, there's pretty good instructions even for a guy like me, but they talk about this thing like 3 different times. It makes you think there's more of them, and I still am a little confused by it, but that's the only one they give you and the only place it makes sense for it to be. I mean, that's where it goes, but then it tells you after you put this case on to make sure it's on the rear counter shaft or something. I don't know. That's got to be the only thing there is to do with it. So this goes, it's supposed to pull out on that. Actually, that's got to go in there. I don't know how I keep that from falling out of there. I have to, obviously, let's rotate so we're not. So we're going this way. Otherwise, that bad boy is just going to fall right out of there. Swap-a-roo. Okay. Now this guy should be down. The other shift levers are neutral, and then you're supposed to pull out on this. Goes in there. The trick, I guess, is getting this shift fork. Does it even go? There's no way to reach in. Lever. Is good except for whatever, we gotta try to get this guy. I have no idea how to get that. It says to pull out on this, but it's out as far as it goes and forward, which is what it is. I'm gonna have black goop all over everything. That's the other thing about pushing through in here, but I can see the little guy. I don't know how you get it past the thing it's supposed to be on. Something must not be in neutral because I can't spin the shaft. That makes a difference, but they said to put it in neutral. Thought I did that. And I don't know, I guess metal is neutral, right? That won't spin anywhere. Alright, I guess in the end, the story is everything will work. It's just a pain in the butt. Getting that reverse fork, if that's what it's called, on the little reverse gear thing, not easy. So you guys didn't get to see it because I got frustrated and turned the camera off. But with a little bit of fighting, we got her. So now I think we got to put this roll pin back. This is the roll pin that I took out of the other tail shaft. I think we took it out from the bottom up, so I'm thinking go in from the top down. There's a slot in here that we got to hit. There we go, I can see daylight through there. All right, something, it's either a tight fit or something, because we're running out of juice. It started and now it's just bending. Perfect. Now I gotta go find a new one of these things. Still can't quite get her all the way home. Is that good enough, hopefully? All but about a 1/4 inch this time. What do we got? What do we got? I just had like a little pry bar thingamabobber. I don't think there's any bending that up. I'm sure it's supposed to go through there a little further. I mean, it's right there. I think we're gonna call that good. I mean, maybe that's all it does. It doesn't go through that last little bit. It's right at the end of it, and it just started bending over right there, so I don't know. Hopefully that's good enough. All right, we're at put the bolts back in. I'm struggling because I kind of originally planned on painting the transmission aluminum colored, but I don't know. Now I don't know if I'm gonna go through all that or not. Because really, we're not that far away from putting this thing back in the car. I thought, after getting the instructions, there was just a few things I didn't understand, so that's what was hard, was just figuring out what you're doing. And then, you know, there's a few little hard steps along the way, but there's really not much to this so far. I say that, and now I can't get any of my bolts started. Well lined up. Like it should be going easier than that. Probably should run a tap in there or something. I don't know if I got that one. Started it, I guess. Well, see, something as easy as starting a couple bolts is a struggle for me. Grabs the thread and then says no dice. Everything else, I start to show you, then I gotta turn off the camera and fight. All right, I got the bolts all tightened up. I got the little shift lever back on. So now, it actually in the instructions, it says now you can install the transmission back in the car and check for clearance issues. I don't think I'm gonna have any clearance issues, and I'm not gonna put everything together, but I think I'm gonna put this, I don't know if this is called, what this one's called, the adapter or the extension. I'm gonna put this on so I can try to put my shifter on, even though it fought me getting the transmission out with the shifter on there. There's just not a lot of room with the exhaust right there to hook up all this linkage and everything. So I'm gonna try to put this on, try to put the shifter on, and then try to put the transmission back in the car. So this, let me see what this one's called. Second adapter section. So this is the second adapter section. And I think when I was looking at these to order them, like if you have a Muncie, this is all one long piece, I think. I don't know. Anyways, this is how mine works. And as you can see inside of here, there's a, you know, that's the spot where the shaft goes in there. So that shaft fits in there and turns that. And now we got an output shaft over here, and that's what's gonna drive the gear vendor unit. So there's another piece that goes on the back of this. Let's see, I think there might be there's an O-ring or a gasket or something. So this part's gonna go on here like so. Your shifter mounts right here, and then we're kind of like back to the stock, you know, that's just the new tail section basically. Then the gear vendor goes on here. So let me get the gasket and O-ring or whatever we gotta do. We'll get this all bolted up, and then we'll figure out the transmission. And then we'll be back under the car fighting with that, and we can bolt the gear vendor unit on from under there, I believe. All right, well, I was looking for the, get out of there, the seal and the nuts, or the bolts and stuff for this guy, and I found, I guess they supply you a new roll pin. I don't know, didn't say gear vendor, install gear vendor supplied roll pin, but that's gotta be what that guy's for. It's in most of the way just by hand. Looks like we got a little further before it wants to stop. Something. All right, now we got that roll pin all the way in there. One less thing to worry about. I'm pretty sure the other one would have stayed in there too. It was pretty tight fit. All right, so we got this second adapter unit, and it doesn't have a gasket. It has an O-ring. I'm having camera issues. So it's got an O-ring, 5 bolts, and you think you'd want lock washers, but they supply 5 regular washers, so I guess they're the experts. That must be what works. So somehow we got to get that O-ring to stay where it wants to stay, or where it needs to stay, has to stay. Easy as that, I think. There's a storm brewing out there. Memorial Day weekend, so in Montana that means it's a storm. Don't even bother trying to go camping on Memorial Day around here. You are gonna get wet every year. Every year. All right, we'll get these tightened up. And next step is figure out the shifter. Oh, and I did buy 2 more O-rings. I was thinking about replacing these, but you got to pull this cover, and I'd like to pull the cover and look in there and just see how it all looks, but I don't have a gasket. And when I was Googling stuff last night, it sounds like you pretty much need that gasket if you take it apart. So I don't want to open another whole can of worms or case of gears, if the case may be. And I thought one of these was leaking, but I don't see no signs of oil. I think it was actually the reverse one that was leaking anyway. All right, I'm back, having some camera battery issues. Anyways, so I skipped ahead a little ways, got the shifter on. I did have to, it says they're drilled for most popular shifters. Mine's a Hers Competition Plus, so very popular shifter. It was drilled for it. I didn't film it because my batteries were charging, but I did have to grind a little bit of the bracket. There's a shifter, and then there's a bracket. This back piece is a bracket that goes on separate. It hit the lip right here, so I didn't want to grind onto the Gear Vendors because I just didn't want to, I didn't know how thick it was in there. I noticed it before I put this together, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of meat right there, so I ground the back of the bracket, and then I had to grind this corner of the bracket off right down there because it interfered with that tab. And then I put the shifter on, and obviously the shifter is, I'm going to say maybe 1/4, 3/8 of an inch further back because I had to lengthen all the shift rod. So I just barely had enough meat on this shift rod to get there. So I did the old, put the screwdriver, put it in neutral, put that in there, and then adjust all the little rods to the right length. And seems like it goes through all the gears sitting here. So hopefully that's all good. And then also I went ahead and cut out my drive shaft loop. I used my little Ingersoll Rand air saw. This thing, it buzzed through that like it was butter, baby. And it allowed me to get fairly close, but I couldn't get, you can see they're kind of cut at an angle. That's as close as I could get with stuff in the way. Now, unfortunately, I had to remove this because my transmission's like longer now with all the Gear Vendor stuff. And the drive shaft loop, I think, has to be within 6 inches of the center of your U-joint. So that's gonna have to go back further. I'm gonna try to reuse it. Means I had to cut it. It won't reach frame to frame now, but approximately where I'm gonna need to be now, by taking some measurements, there's some other bracketry and some stuff with the seat bolts and the harness bolts I got coming down through the floor on some metal tabs. I may be able to just somehow make it work on there. I may have to start all over with a new one or a whole different thing, but I got some ideas, but I don't really know until I get the transmission in there how it's gonna work. I don't know if this angle is gonna be right now. It's almost too tight against the floor. So I think we're basically ready to try to throw this in the car. Unfortunately, I gotta go do some stuff with the wife. I mean, it's not unfortunate I gotta do that, but unfortunately, I gotta go do some other stuff. So maybe later tonight or tomorrow, we'll be back out to struggle to throw this bad boy back in the car. I am a little worried about this dimension and hitting the floor. You see how much smaller we were before right there. It was a little closer and it was just, you know, whoop, and now we're wonk. So, and then it looks like when you put the Gear Vendor unit on, it stays about this dimension for about 6 inches and then it tapers down. So this is gonna be about 12 inches longer still. So we got quite the long unit going under there. But I think we're gonna throw it in the car like this and then figure all that stuff out. Good time. All right, next day. Again, we're on like day 12 of this epic journey. No, I don't know. Just been doing a little bit each day. I got where we left off, I had the shifter installed, I think. I put the transmission mount on, and then there's this little coupler guy. This comes in and out. And you got to add some, what'd I do? There's some little shims or spacers that go on the back side. And then you have to get the end play correct by measuring this with a straight edge across there to get this basically touching that, or within 20 thousandths, I think it was. Anyways, we got that where it needs to be. And so now we're ready to try to get this bad boy all together as one unit, even though there's more pieces to this unit still. We're ready to try to put it back in the car. So let's struggle with that. My son is here doing the oil change on his truck, so hopefully he can help me a little bit if needed. So that's next.
Know you've been a good friend, and that's in the thick and thin, and I know it's never gonna end, 'cause you've been a good friend.
All right, that was a bit of a struggle, but we got it up in there. Thankfully Trey was here to help me out. So I just got to get these bolts tightened up, get the jack out of the way, and then we'll grab the gear vendor unit, and we'll find out at that point if we're going to have enough clearance or if we got to modify or beat the floor up a little bit. Well, if you guys are on the muffler cam, as luck would have it, the transmission cross member needs to go back like a 1/2 inch to fit. So not a huge deal. I have a bolt-in one, but I gotta take it out, take out the brackets, drill and tap a couple holes, and move it back a 1/2 inch, and then it's about this close to my muffler. But I think I can get to the leading edge of the muffler without touching the muffler and still have it work. We're about ready to find out. I got one side retapped or remounted. I'm just taking the second side apart. Sure wish I would have done this gear vendor before I put this exhaust in here. That would have made life a lot easier. But I'm not known for doing stuff the easy way, I guess, huh? Alright, we're ready for the next piece of the puzzle. All that other stuff was just adapters and whatever to make the overdrive work or fit. This is the actual overdrive unit. This is where all the magic happens, I guess. There's some sort of wizardry or something inside of this box that gives you an extra gear and different options on how to use it. So it came shipped in this plastic bag all wrapped up, and there's ATF all over it. So I'm going to take a minute to clean it off. We got to install a gasket on here, and then this just bolts to the adapter part we already got up under the car. Alright, hopefully this part won't be too bad. It is kind of heavy. Nothing I shouldn't be able to handle, but... Alright, I got the gasket on there with a thin layer of RTV or whatever. Got some nuts and washers handy. It looks like we gotta just try to get it lifted up there. The thing is a little heavier than I thought it was, actually. Got bad shoulder action. Alright. Yeah, we're good. Line up the studs. Where we go? Which one's not hitting? What's going on? There we go. Well, bam. Alright. No clearance issues. Must be in gear. A little tight right here, but I guess should be good. So they supply 8 little nuts and washers. This is all the same. Alright, so we'll get this tightened up, and then we can start thinking about what we're going to do with our drive shaft loop. And we got to do some wiring. And this was loose. I assume this must be the fill plug. So we got to put some ATF in there. Got to remember to put some transmission fluid back in the transmission, or not transmission fluid, gear oil. And then, yeah, so we'll get this tightened up, and then we got wiring to do. The drive shaft obviously has to be shortened, so that's about as far as we're going to get on this project. It's Memorial Day weekend, so I'm going to have to wait a couple days. But making progress. All right, gear vendors installed minus wiring and drive shaft. Now I'm going to try to make my old drive shaft loop work. It's not going to work how it did before, but I might be able to modify it and make it work. So we're going to cut it off a little shorter here and then see if we can make it work. I'm not real sure about this, but I have an idea, just not a very good one. This first cut's just kind of a rough cut to get it to fit up in there, and then I'm going to have to make some modifications. I'll probably modify it by throwing it in the garbage and buying something else. Go see what that does. Alright, I got a little distracted trying to modify the drive shaft loop I already had that I cut out, trying to make it work, and I might be able to make this work, but the problem is I really can't tell for sure if this is. I'm actually going to have to flip it upside down now, so that's going to be facing up like that. I can't tell if the drive shaft is going to clear this, and I can't put the drive shaft in. The drive shaft is too long now, but I can't even put it in the yoke of the, I guess, the gear vendor now, because the yoke is different. You know, it's a different spline, different size. So I can kind of visualize it, and I can just see like, it's going to be close. I don't know. So I guess I'm not going to spend a bunch more time working on that until I know what's going to work. So we'll set this aside. We'll get back on that once we have the drive shaft back. So I guess the stuff we have left to do here for the gear vendor thing is we still got to do all the wiring. So these are the wiring odds and ends they give you. And of course there's some instructions, and I haven't really looked into that part of it too much, but we'll check that out and then figure out where we got to run some wires. Obviously we need 12 volts and I don't know, we'll figure it all out. And the other thing I noticed when I was in here messing with stuff is I'm gonna have to cut my floor further back because my shifter won't go into second and fourth. So everything is a hair further back than it used to be. So other than that, we're doing pretty good. All right, here's the wiring. They give you this little MSD controller, and then you got this harness, and these two sets of wires have to go to down to the transmission or the overdrive, and then the rest of it is just power, ground, and then these ones either go to the switch or the little indicator lights. So there's not a lot to it. I think what I'm gonna do is try to find someplace under the dash to mount this, and I'm gonna send these ones that go down to the overdrive through the floor right here by the shifter like I did with this guy. So I'll drill another hole, maybe back just a hair. I got a little grommet, and those will go down through the floor right there, and they'll have to go up under the carpet. And then somewhere up under the dash I'll mount them. They give you a couple little indicator lights. This is my line lock indicator, so I'm gonna, maybe I'll see if they'll fit here and here. I'll put the other two little lights because they're kind of like that, or up there, probably there and there. Feels like there's room, so I'll drill some holes for those bad boys. And the other thing, the only thing I don't really like, not that I don't like it, but here's the switch they give you, the shift knob with the overdrive switch. And I don't mind that. I kind of wanted to continue using, where's it at? I wanted to use, I'm more of a fan of the T-handle, it's more old school or whatever. And I had modified this and put this switch in it, but that was for my line lock. And this is a momentary switch, so it means it's only activated if you're pushing it. So on, off, on, off. This needs, I think they call it a latching switch, so it's on and off. So if I were to use the T-handle, overdrive would only work while I was holding the button, so that's no good. And I glued this in here. I mean, I don't think there's any way I can get it out without destroying the whole world. So if I could find a latching switch that would fit in there, then I would like to leave that and then figure out where else to mount my line lock. But I guess for now, so I don't have to reinvent the whole world, I'm just gonna use their shifter, overdrive on, off, and then I'll put one of them little push buttons on the stick here, probably for the line lock. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those, so I'll have to order another one. So that means until that comes, I won't be able to finish putting the boot and everything on. But anyways, I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'll save this and use it. The 57 has a line lock. Well, that's what I should do, I guess, huh? I should put this in the 57 and use this button, and I can steal the shifter button. Yeah, I'm making stuff up as I go, and it's working out great. So I thought about stealing one from the 57, but I was like, if I steal it, then I'm gonna have to rewire it. But I'll just put this in there. I'll still have to rewire it, but then I don't have to buy anything, and they both will have a line lock switch. Genius! All right, so I'm gonna drill the hole, get those wires down through there. We'll have to, I don't know, I'm gonna have to loosen some stuff up so I can get under the carpet good enough. We'll drill some holes in there and figure out where to get 12 volts from and a good ground. Easy as that. All right, back in the car, I got my hole drilled and my grommet installed right down there, if you can see it. And I tried to fish the wires through there. I can't reach through there, and the wires would just kind of like bunch up. So I'm gonna use the old fish tape trick. So the only thing I had handy that I thought might work is a tape measure. So I taped the wires I need over here to the end of the tape measure. And we will see if I can set you guys somewhere. I guess we'll do it one-handed. Kinda get them started, so hopefully it doesn't pull back off of there. Come to Papa. Now we got wires over here. Oh man, it has been a day. It is getting kind of late. I've been on here most of the day. I got a huge mess as usual, but I think other than, you know, troubleshooting and filling with fluid, I think I got the whole Gear Vendors thing installed and wired and everything. So I mean, I don't have a drive line, so I can't like test it or anything, but hopefully it'll just take a couple days to get that but I do have, let's see, out is on. I wired up all the little buttons and the lights. So turn the key on. Got my line lock button down here now. That's that light. And this is the gear vendor button. And that means it's ready and waiting. And then once you get over 20 miles an hour, it'll shift automatically and the green light will come on. Or if when you're driving, you're not supposed to use it below 20 miles an hour, I guess. So when you're driving, if you shift into overdrive, then the green light will come on instead of the red light. But the red light works. I don't know about the green light yet, but I think everything is wired up properly. I don't have a speedometer in this thing, or a speedometer cable, but they give you like this little speedometer adapter, actually hook some wires up to, because like I was saying, it will automatically shift for you at 20 miles an hour if you want it to do that. And so I put their little cable adapter and their little cable into their end and then just left it free. So I don't know if that part's going to work. I kind of zip tied it up so it's not flapping around because it's not hooked to another speedometer, because I don't have a speedometer cable from the car down to there. So we'll see how that works, but if the 20 mile an hour thing doesn't work, I can just shift it manually. But man, I have a huge mess to clean up. Yeah, I'm just glad this is out of the way. Guess we should do one final look-see from down below. I don't remember where I left off or what I showed you, but we'll show you with the actual gear vendor unit on here. Try to. Hang on, you're getting dizzy. All right. Losing stuff, light in my face. So here we go, the back part there, that's the actual gear vendor unit, and then the other spacers I put on the bench up there. So it is, I can't remember, I think it's 14 inches longer approximately than what it was before, as far as how much shorter my drive shaft is going to be. But here's the wiring, and then this is a speedometer cable thing that I don't have the rest of the speedometer cable for the car, but I got the wires plugged in there, and we'll see if that works for its automatic shift. I have to fill this with fluid. I have to fill the transmission with fluid because it all spilled out on the bench when I was messing with it. And then get a drive shaft shortened and back to vroom vroom. And well, bam, just like that, Inland Truck Parts got me hooked up, got me in and out on the same day. So we got a new shortened drive shaft with the Gear Vendor Overdrive yoke on it. So we got to get this bad boy under there, and then I started to add some fluid. A little note for you, and I should have been smart enough to figure this out. Don't put the fluid in the Gear Vendor unit until you have the drive shaft in, because before it gets to the fill plug, it runs out the tail of the unit. So we need to put that in, then add a little more fluid, and I also needed to add a little more fluid to the transmission. And then we're going to go for a drive and see how this bad boy works. Here's my drive shaft loop I came up with. Perhaps a little unconventional, but hopefully it'll work. It's leftover pieces of my original drive shaft loop. Some plates I already had mounted on the floor where my, let's see, is that the seats, or I think this is where the safety harness bolt goes through the floor. I just put these little plates in there to kind of strengthen that up. And then of course, here's the little loop part that goes on there. So hopefully that's good enough. Painted it, or made it and painted it last night. So I'm going to throw it under the car. And then after that, I'm going to get that hitch on there. That hitch on there. A little further so we can get going fast enough to engage the overdrive just as like 5th gear overdrive gear, and then we can use it as we're shifting through gears too. I want to try just the overdrive first. more enjoyable on the highway. For Big Sky Raceway, but in general also. Little gunk when it pops out, they said that's normal. All right, enough from a stop. I should be able to turn it on, get it ready.